Today we're going to be talking about another hero for a for or against series. Hopefully you've been enjoying these. These have been a lot of fun to do. This one is kind of a weird one. The reason being is because at the time it was really, really rough to play this hero because they teach you how action windows work, and action windows can be a little tricky, and we'll get into more of that later. But it's as time has progressed and has moved on, this hero has become a lot stronger. And today we're going to be talking about Miss Marvel. Now, really quick note is that there are a lot of combos and a lot of weird rules with Miss Marvel. So again, for these for and against a series videos, I try to be as objective as possible. But there are certain combos that maybe I get slightly wrong or whatever, because there's a lot going on there. Please feel free to correct it down in the comments. Or if you have more examples that you think are better, please put them down in the comments as well. I would greatly appreciate this. But yeah, let's dive into this hero. First, we're going to go over her cards, and then we'll talk a bit about her. Now, really quick before we begin, if you want to support this channel, make sure to go over to patreon.com/D20 woodworking. You can subscribe there. You get a lot of exclusive content over there. You get a lot of content in general that you won't see here on YouTube, either written or whatever else. There's actually ways to see a ton of content. That's why you should be following me on all social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it may be, because not all the content makes it to like here on YouTube. It makes it to a ton of different places. So make sure to check all that out. Especially now on Twitter, I'm kind of putting some of the blog type stuff up there as well, and just doing more written things in general. So if you want to check that out. But anyway, so patreon.com/D20 woodworking if you want to support this channel, or if you go, hey, that's too much money over there, I can't afford that. Totally get it, totally understand. Over here on YouTube, or if you're listening to the podcast over on YouTube, you can start becoming a member here for just 99 cents a month. Even that 99 cents helps out this channel so much, you would not believe it. I've made a joke about this with Novels, who streams here sometimes when I do the live streams, that if all my subs were giving 99 cents a month, we'd be able to do this full time, right? That's how powerful 99 cents is and how much it helps the channel. So anyway, so really appreciate everyone that has already supported the channel. Thank you so much. It really does mean a lot. It really helps out. And if you ever want to consider supporting, I would greatly appreciate it. If you can't now and you just want to share the videos and share the love, I appreciate that too. So thank you very much. All right, so let's start with Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel. And this was the first hero, because we had the core box 5 that, like, not that she felt weird, but like we didn't have I guess She-Hulk didn't have her own like show yet. But Kamala, wasn't really as well known of a hero. I feel like she was kind of lesser known. And the thing is, like, if you read her comics, they're actually really fun. Probably because she's from Jersey and I'm from Jersey, so like we have that going for us. But anyway, she's got some cool stuff she's doing here. So let's start with her alter ego side. Kamala Khan, 5 recovery. Now I know this is out of the ordinary amount of recovery, but I love it. She has 10 hit points, 6 hand size, but 5 recovery. So if I flip down, I am basically getting pretty darn close to full life on just 1 recovery. Like, this is one of the coolest things about her right away. So, all right, so her Teen Spirit ability on her alter ego side: discard cards from the top of your deck until you discard a Miss Marvel card, then add to your hand limit once per round. I don't know if this is always good. Like, sometimes when I have an opening hand and I have no Miss Marvel cards, I will just do this to get something, right? Sometimes I don't want to discard everything. People have played with the idea of now that cards like Digging Deep, which is a resource card that if you discard from the top of your pile, you get it in your hand. People have played with putting Digging Deeps in there so that you could do it with that. I don't know if that's worth it per se, because there's a lot of Kamala cards and the odds of that happening aren't great when you want it to, but it's an option. But anyway, I'll do it sometimes, but if I do end up with a handful of Kamala cards, like 6 of them, right, from the alter ego side, I won't do this because I don't need another one to not play and use as a resource, right? So, interesting ability. I like it. It doesn't always work out in my favor, but that's quite all right. So on her hero side, she has one of the worst stat lines in the game. And the reason being is because you shouldn't really be using her stat line that much, realistically. Now, you will sometimes, of course, but generally speaking, you probably shouldn't. So her stat line is a 1-1-1. And she doesn't have any cards to boost it. I think it is the worst in the game. Yeah, I think it's the worst in the game. So if you're looking for a type of hero that you want to, exhaust the Thor or exhaust their attack or whatever, I only use it to basically clear statuses at this point. Like, maybe very first turn, because I can't recall a card, which we'll get into in a second. but I use to like clear statuses and recall cards, and that's it. Very first turn, maybe thwart or ping damage, maybe. But yeah, she has a terrible, absolutely terrible stat line. Drops down to 5 hand size, stays at 10 hit points. Okay. So Morphogenics, which is like her big thing. And this was the thing that when it came out, it personally blew my mind slightly when I first played it. But I think we weren't ready as a community for it because she's going to teach us action windows, basically, is how she works. So after you play an attack, thwart, or defense event, exhaust Miss Marvel, return that event to your hand. Now, a lot of people get kind of confused with this early on because, okay, well, if I played it and then other things happen, can I still recall it? Like, right? Like, if I play a defense event, but the villain needs to finish attacking, can I still recall that thing? Like, it's kind of confusing, and I get it. She is, if you're not used to like Lord of the Rings, the card game, which is basically just Lord of the Rings, the action window game, you would have a hard time with this. I had a hard time with this still, and I play a lot of Lord of the Rings because action windows aren't like inherently understood. Like they're very, very weird. And when I say this with action windows, basically, when can you do this response, right? When does this response count? Like, again, if I finish doing the villain's turn, is the window disappeared, right? Is it gone, right? And it's very, very tricky stuff. But basically, after you play whatever it is, the attack or the thwart event, right? And it goes to your discard pile, that's all fine. You can return it back to your hand, right? So if you get retaliated by the villain, that doesn't interrupt it or anything like that, that's all fine. It's generally speaking, as long as you're not playing another card from your hand or you doing another action yourself, you can do Morphogenics on this card, right? As long as she's upright. Obviously, if she's exhausted, you can't do it. So that's important to note. Same with the defense events. That if you use a defense event and the villain has to finish attacking you, whatever it may be, that's fine. You have like a little action window that you can engage in there because the response or the triggering condition for this, is after you play that event, so thus you can do the thing. Like defense events are also very weird because defense actions are very weird and they're very kind of tricky to understand. So anyway, that is tough, and I feel like for a lot of new players, this is just a hard thing to grasp. And it's not a knock against new players. Veterans struggle with this. A lot of people struggle with this. So I feel like this kind of put her on a back foot a bit because people just had a hard time with Miss Marvel, and I 100% understand it. She's also, as we'll see, a very event-heavy hero, and a lot of people don't like that style. They want to build out a lot more, and there is build out here, but they want to build out a lot more, and this isn't really the hero for that. Like it's very event-heavy and very trigger condition heavy. So we'll get into that in a second. So Red Dagger is our signature ally, 3 cost, 2/3 stat line. When Red Dagger is defeated, you spend 2 resources of any type, deal 2 damage to an enemy, and return Red Dagger to your hand. Now, again, a lot of new players may look at this and go, I don't see the value of this. Like, why would I do this? And the reason being is because being able to recur Red Dagger is or can be very strong in the sense that you are not taking any damage now, right? So you can use Red Dagger as an infinite blocker if you have resource generators or whatever it may be to continuously get him out there. Have the resource generators out there and then dealing damage to the enemy. So it's like it's like a retaliate, but not, right? Because if he got knocked out before he retaliated, the retaliate wouldn't happen. So for a lot of those easier minions, he could block an easier minion, get himself knocked out, whatever it may be. Put him back out there, thwart some, attack some, whatever it may be. Do that for 2 rounds and then use him as a blocker, rinse and repeat. I wouldn't do this every round of recurring him and trying to get him as a blocker. I don't think that will work efficiently for you. But you figure, again, so the first round he comes out, he takes 1 damage for thwarting attack. In the second round, he does the same type of thing. Third, and then the end of the second round, you block with him, so he does the 2 damage back to a villain too. That's fine. And then that third round, you put him back out. So that alternating pattern, once you're built out, can work. Again, it's tricky. It's definitely tricky, but it can work. This is a strategy. I don't know if it's a strategy that mixes and matches with everything else, but it is a strategy that can work. But again, this is Miss Marvel in a nutshell. Her strategies seem a little weird. They seem a little off compared to what we're used to with all the heroes so far that we've seen. So we get to her attack card, which is Big Hands. And Big Hands is a 2-cost event, deal 4 damage to an enemy, which isn't great, right? Like, if you bump this up Essentially, it's 1 cost for 2 damage. So if she was 3 costs, this would only be 6 damage, which is not good, right? Like, it's not good. If 3 for 8 is the standard, 3 for 6 is not good by any stretch of the imagination. Now, we will be able to boost this up. What makes this card more interesting is that you can play Big Hands, exhaust Miss Marvel to return that event back to your hand, and play it again. Right? That's the idea. That's the cadence of what you want to do because it's only 2 costs, hypothetically. Now, there are ways to boost this card, and we'll get into that in a second. But that is what makes Miss Marvel powerful, is that a lot of times with like Spider-Man, 3 for 8 damage card, great card. Sometimes you can't play in the beginning, and then you play it once, and you're like, man, if I could just hit again, right? Like, if I could just hit again, I'd be done with this game. Well, now you could hypothetically do that, right? You could do that because you'd be able to recall this card back. And if you had resource generators or def focus or whatever for superpower cards, makes the card cheaper, makes it a lot better. So anyway, she has 3 copies, right? 3 copies of Big Hands. Then we have our event card, Sneak By, 2 for 3 threat removal. Also terrible. Like, on paper, not good. Not what you want. 2 for 4 is what you would generally want. Maybe 3 for 5. But this is just not generally good. We'll be able to boost it later. But again, you can recall this card after you used it. Wiggle Room is actually a bonkers good card. So Wiggle Room is a 0 cost event. Is a defense card. When you would take any amount of damage, so don't exhaust, right? Don't exhaust to defend. Just get ready to take damage. Prevent 3 of that damage. On solo play, that's a lot of damage. If you're playing against a bunch of minions, this is really nice. That like, okay, the villain's going to attack me, whatever. But the minions, I don't have to worry about. That's nice. Then you get to draw a card. So basically, the effective cost, even though it costs 0, the effective cost is 1 because you're losing 1 card. Being able to draw a card to replace it, really nice. Wiggle Room is a really strong card. It's a good card to recur if you're going to get attacked over and over. So again, you play Wiggle Room, let's say against the villain. You can recall it by exhausting Miss Marvel, get it back, and minions go and attack you. You can play it again, right? So essentially, the first time you play this card, draw a card, and then you get this card back. So you're up 1 card, and then you play it again the second time, and you get to draw another card. So you broke even, right? You don't have fewer cards, which is really nice. So that kind of combo can work really well with Wiggle Room. I think there's 2 copies of Wiggle Room? Yeah, 2 copies of Wiggle Room. All right, then we get into her supports and upgrades, which are weird, right? They're weird. They're weird to wrap your head around sometimes. So first is Amir Khan. 1 cost support, persona, alter ego action, exhaust Amir Khan, place 1 card from your discard pile on the bottom of your deck, then draw 1 card. So again, it's nice that, okay, I had to throw away Big Hands or whatever it may be, but I could put that on the bottom of my deck. I'm probably going to go through my deck pretty fast, and now I could draw a card, right? So helping us draw cards. She wants to be an alter ego a ton. This was also weird a lot for the beginning of the game because, again, there's a lot of solo players. So a lot of people weren't used to like having to drop to alter ego to make a lot of the things work, which we'll get into with her other supports as well. But she wants to. She has a lot of card draw. She can get through her deck fast, which positive, you can get the cards you want. Negative, that you're going to start getting bad encounter cards because every time you run through your deck, right, you get an extra encounter card. It's not going to be great, right? It's going to be really, really rough at times. Bruno Corelli, I think is how you say his last name, 1 cost support. Alter ego action, exhaust Bruno, attach 1 card from your hand face down. Again, this is good to save up for Big Hands or whatever it may be. When you want to save your attack cards, you could do that with Bruno. Then a regular action, so you could be on your hero side, exhaust Bruno to add up to 3 cards attached here to your hand. So you can have 20 cards attached to Bruno. There is no limit. But being able to add 3 cards randomly to your hand each time, if you have a 5 hand size, add 3. Even if you use 2 of them as resources, absolutely strong, really, really good to have to build out around to set up for those big turns. Again, save 2 doubles and have Big Hands. Use Big Hands with a double. Exhaust Miss Marvel. Get Big Hands back. Use the other double. I haven't even touched the 5 cards I was dealt yet, right? That's something you can do with just Bruno alone, who we're not going to talk about too much. Anyway, and then Nakia Bahadir, might be saying her name wrong, so I apologize. 1 cost support. She's actually really, really strong. Well, not actually. I shouldn't say actually. But I think a lot of people miss how good and how strong she is. So alter ego action, exhaust Nakia to reduce the cost of the next card you play this phase by 1. Now, if you're like me, you may go, oh, I have to play a card on my alter ego side in order to use this. No, you do not. All right, that's not what the card says. And I made this mistake all the time where I would flip down, on alter ego action, exhaust it, and immediately play a card. What you could do is exhaust Nakia. You could flip up and then play Big Hands, the event card, for only one. That is an action you can do. You don't have to be on your alter ego side because it just says the next card you play. You could do a ton of other things on the board as long as you're not playing cards. Whenever you decide to play the next card, that's when the cost is reduced, right? So if you do other actions, whatever they may be, exhausting your hero to ping damage, or having your allies attack, or use other supports or upgrades, it's all okay because it only refers to the next card you play. Again, this is a part of what makes Miss Marvel a little difficult to use because that wording is a little tricky. It gets a little like that's tough for new people to kind of wrap their head around. But once you realize that, and again, lean into flipping down, this becomes a lot stronger and becomes a lot better. So with all the events that you're recalling and that you're playing, you need a way to pay for it, and that's what Biokinetic Polymer Suit does, right? It's one cost upgrade. You exhaust the card, generate a wild resource for that event. This is going to help you pay for all those cards. It's going to make it stronger. You only have one of them, but a lot of your events are generally kind of cheaper-ish. So this is going to help pay for it. If you have other resource generators, obviously that's really strong. Excuse me. And that'll help you out a lot too. Now, she's not an Avenger, so you would need to figure out other resource generators to use. She's Inhuman, which they haven't done much with, and a Champion, which they did a bit more in the Sinister Motive cycle. So she got some of those buffs later on. But yeah, so she has one resource generator. Then we have her last two upgrades, which are Embiggen, 2-cost upgrade. When you play an attack event, exhaust Embiggen, increase the amount of damage the event deals by 2. So again, for Big Hands, you pay 2 for Big Hands, exhaust Embiggen. Now you're dealing 6 damage. You recall Big Hands, you play it again, it doesn't do the 2 again, it just does 4, so you get to basically do 4 for 10 damage essentially with Embiggen. So that's really just strong, right? That's really good to know. Now with Shrink is kind of the same exact idea. So 2-cost upgrade Shrink. When you play a thwart event, exhaust Shrink, increase the amount of threat that event removes by 2. Now, one of the confusing things with her, oh, she doesn't have it here. So there's multitasking, which is a event card that like you remove 2 threat from one scheme, and then if you use a mental resource, remove 2 threat again, basically from a different scheme. And this card would increase it to a 4/4, right? I know a lot of people get confused on like how that would work because it says increase the amount of threat the event removes by 2. So people be like, oh, it should be like a 4/2. Actually, hold on, let me pull up multitasking. All right, here we go. Here's multitasking. So it's a 1-cost event, Justice, remove 2 threat from a scheme. If you pay for this card using a mental resource or her resource generator, that's a wild, remove 2 threat from a different scheme. So it's 2 and then 2. So a lot of people go, well, if, here we go. If Shrink says increase the amount by 2, there should only be 6 total threat removal. Now, it's going to be by each instance of it. So you're going to remove 4 threat from a scheme, and then if you pay for a mental, you're going to remove 4 threat from a scheme, right? It's really weird in the way that's worded, and that's the type of like Miss Marvel stuff in general that gets kind of confusing. The same can be said for the attack too, like for Embiggen, works kind of exactly the same. So again, it's kind of a weird thing to wrap your head around. There might be exceptions to those rules, and you can point them down in the comments. Because even to this day, like it still confuses me now and again, right? So I can imagine for like newer players, like it could be hard to wrap your head around. So just important note, if there's multiple instances, I think it is the correct wording of the attack or the threat, like it would do it for each of those instances. I think is the correct wording. I might be wrong on that, but generally speaking. So here's the thing with Miss Marvel. She can be really strong. And as more events come out in Marvel Champions that are on the cheaper side, she becomes more dynamic, right? Because she is an event-heavy hero in that sense, right? She's focuses on that the most. And a lot of people I feel like don't enjoy playing events as much as like building out a hero. Now she has build out cards, right? Obviously she has 5 upgrades and supports. There's a lot of flipping down, which solo players don't like, which does make it tough. It makes it feel like you have to play her a lot in Justice. She does work well in aggression, but you kind of don't really play your supports as much because they are all alter ego. So it kind of like limits her hand size. It limits what you want to do. And we'll get into multiplayer in a second, but I'm just talking about solo for right now. So it feels like she's kind of a weird solo hero. She feels like she gets pigeonholed a lot. Again, I think you have to run a lot of allies with her to kind of keep threat down, because if you're playing like aggression or leadership or protection, she doesn't have a lot of threat removal, right? 3 copies of sneak by with a 2 for 3 threat removal, maybe 2 for 5 if you use shrink, isn't great. So you need those allies to kind of keep everything down for you. Now, her learning curve is very high. I think as you play, the learning curve comes down. You'll figure it out more. You'll kind of get her rhythm and what she's doing, which is really cool. Like I said, more events come out. She gets more dynamic. In the beginning, she always felt kind of like off because she didn't feel part of that Avengers group, right? She wasn't even listed as an Avenger. She's Inhuman and Champion. We didn't have much support for those cards. We still don't have much support for those cards. Inhumans, they can still do a lot for. Champions, they've done a little bit for, which does help her out. So anyway, she just has kind of that weird feel to her, and the action windows are just like, again, tough to kind of wrap your head around. Her cards aren't overly strong, right? There's no card here besides maybe Wiggle Room that I go, wow, that's like a bonkers good card, right? They're good, they're definitely fine, but there's none of those cards that like really leap out to you, because her events are kind of meant to not be overpowered, because she can so easily recall them to use them right away, and that's her strength. And against like certain villains that have retaliate, or there's a lot of guards out there or whatever, it could be kind of overwhelming. If you're dealing with a lot of minions, it's tough to really work with her, because okay, yeah, I can use big hands here and then big hands there, but that's like all I could do. And if another minion or two comes out, like I always feel kind of behind the 8 ball with her at what I'm trying to do. Now, as far as strengths go, again, being able to line up big hits and then do it again, like immediately, like there were so many times I played, like again, Spider-Man with swing and web kick, that, oh, if I just had swing and web kick again, I could really crush it, right? And you could do that with Miss Marvel, because you can recall that card. Being able to, again, thwart for decent amounts with using the combos, I should say, with shrink and then biggin, being able to attack and thwart for decent amounts, it feels really good. All of her upgrades and supports are all one cost. I'm sorry, all of her supports and her polymer suit upgrades, I should say, are all one cost. And biggin and shrink are 2 costs. But on one cost, they're really cheap. And once you get them going with flipping down, you start feeling really strong, right? She has so many extra cards, right? Amir is giving her extra card and being able to put another card back in your deck. Bruno lets you stack your cards so that you can use them whenever you're ready. Nakia lets you exhaust her for the next card you play, be cheaper. Like all that stuff makes all of her cards that much cheaper. It's just, again, hard to kind of wrap your head around. And I never feel overpowered personally with Miss Marvel. I feel strong, but never overpowered. And there is a lot of like moving pieces there. Now, that's a lot of solo talk. Really quick about multiplayer, because I play a fair amount of multiplayer, because I like Miss Marvel. My bias is that I like Miss Marvel as a hero a lot. I think she's a really fun hero. Again, I don't think she's overpowered. I think she's just fun. In multiplayer, she's a lot stronger, because you could be aggression, protection. I wouldn't do leadership, but you could be aggression, protection, or justice with her. And being able to really focus on that one thing and not have to control the board state is really nice, right? It's really, really nice, because you can line up kind of those big hits. Now, does that mean that she's a bad solo hero? No, I play her solo all the time. She can be really strong. You just have to build your deck with a certain focus in mind and pay attention to the board state a lot more. If you're playing with friends and multiplayer and they're like slowly getting the Marvel champions and they want a little bit more of a difficult hero, it's a good hero to introduce them to, because again, learning action windows is clutch in this game. It's a really good learning tool to have with Miss Marvel, and understanding when you can recall these things. So if you have a friend that's like, hey, I just want to punch things in the face, and now I can do it repeatedly in the face with the same card that feels really good, that feels really good, right? So it's Miss Marvel, I think in general, isn't overly powerful. I think she's strong, right? I think she's good. I do think there is a big learning curve there to understanding how morphogenics works with recalling cards, how to really combo different things. She's a very combo heavy hero, and that stuff takes a while. Once you get there, though, it's good, right? It feels good to play her. It's really interesting. She still feels to me this day like a unique hero. She doesn't feel stale in any way, because again, as more events come out, there's more things I can do. And because her cards like shrink and embiggen affect any attack event or any thwart event, they don't ever feel like they're just tied to her kit. So now, okay, if there's good event cards that come out in aggression or justice, I can really play around with those things, right? I could do some interesting things with her. So it's really, really kind of cool. And she also, I will say the one other thing too is I feel like she really benefits from a lot of justice cards that have attack events in there, or aggression cards that, well, they don't really have thwart events, but they have like cards that can help you remove threat. But more so with justice, that they have like certain like attack event cards in justice. I think she benefits a lot from that, and that's why I play a lot of justice with her when I play solo. So anyway, general thoughts though. Again, I think she's strong. I think she's really good. I think there's a big learning curve. I think new people have to kind of take your time with her. She can be a little hard to wrap your head around, and action windows can be a little tricky. But once you get there, it's definitely worth it in my opinion. So, anyway, that is my for or against with Miss Marvel. Again, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, subscribe. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure you subscribe, leave a review. That stuff really helps out. Leave a comment, all that stuff. I really appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts about Miss Marvel, and I will see you all next time.